There's been a response from the opposition, but yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas.
There's nobody around the president, in the White House, in his family, in his political party, who's willing to walk through the door, tap him on the shoulder, and say, Joe, you're done. Yesterday, Joe Biden went to the White House and gave a very brief press announcement. He took a couple of questions, but it wasn't really a press conference. And it was really just to blame Donald Trump, believe it or not, for the border crisis and border chaos. It's an outrageous lie, and he's going to try to get away with it. But what was most disconcerting about this appearance was a moment where he was talking about the terrorist attacks in Israel at the hands of Gaza. He was asked by a reporter if there's been any progress in negotiating to get the hostages free. And watch the president's brain disintegrate before your very eyes.
There is some movement, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. There's some movement. There's been a response from there's been a response from the opposition, but yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas, but it seems to be a little over the top. We're not sure where it is. There's a continuing negotiation right now.
This is terrifying. I mean, honestly, it is terrifying because it's not like he's talking about some tax deal or, proclaiming Transgender Men in Medical Sciences Day with a proclamation and a certificate and a big White House lawn party. No, he's talking about negotiating with terrorists to release hostages after they've slaughtered over 1,000 innocent people. Terrorists, by the way, who are funded through Iran by his own administration. He's talking about the highest level of dangerous national security and foreign policy negotiations, and he can't even form a full sentence. He forgot the name of the terrorists he's negotiating with. It took a reporter, by the way, to bail him out. Do you like that part? A reporter's trying to God, we got to help this guy out. We can't have Trump back here. Sir, do you mean Hamas? Yeah, Hamas. Thank you. Because, in his mind, he's like, oh, let's see. I'm dealing with the opposition, as he called them. I'm dealing with the opposition. They're terrorists. They're horrible. They're murderers. Yeah, MAGA Republicans. You know who I'm talking about, right? That's probably what was going on in the little hamster wheel running in the wheel that's in his brain right now. Can we watch this again, please? Because it needs to be reiterated how bad this is, how terrifying this is, and that there's nobody around the president, in the White House, in his family, in his political party, who's willing to walk through the door, tap him on the shoulder, and say, Joe, you're done. Don't we deserve better than this? Let's watch again.
There is some movement, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. There's some movement. There's been a response from there's been a response from the opposition.
I think it's understandable if a normal American watches this and they think about a man in their life, either their father or their uncle or their grandfather or their great-grandfather at some point in your life where you've seen this kind of cognitive deterioration, and your heart goes out to him. You start to feel sorry for him. I get that. That's a normal human emotion. It's an understandable, compassionate response. Part of me feels that way. And then part of me remembers how mean and spiteful this human being is, how manipulative and divisive he's been his entire sad, lamentable political career. I think about the family of Robert Bork and how he treated them during his confirmation hearings back in the 80s. I think about Clarence Thomas and his wife, Ginny Thomas, and their family and what he put them through during those horrific hearings in the early 90s. I think about how he has treated anyone who has opposed him politically. I think about how he thinks about you and me right now for not supporting him and not wanting to vote for him, the fact that he thinks that we're insurrectionists and terrorists. And, suddenly I stop feeling so compassionate for him. On a human level, yes. On an intellectual level and political level, absolutely not. Now, this, of course, comes just days after another terrifying moment, this time in an appearance in Las Vegas. We showed this to you yesterday when he mistook the president of France. First, he thought that it was the chancellor of Germany, then remembered it was the president of France, but then he called him Francois Mitterrand, a man who's been dead for 30 years.
Right after I was elected, I went to what they call a G7 meeting, all the NATO leaders. It was in the south of England. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And Mitterrand from from France looked at me and said, how long are you back for?
I mean, first of all, nobody believes this story even happened, but he can't even remember the made up lines of the pretend French president in the story that they invented. And one has to wonder, does he think that President Macron is actually named Mitterrand? Does he think that President Mitterrand is, in fact, the president of France right now, and he doesn't even know who Macron is? Or does he think that he literally had a conversation with a man who is dead? And I think by asking all of those questions, you realize once again why there is no way this man is equipped to run a presidential campaign, let alone debate against his presidential opponent. And everyone's like, well, he can't run the campaign. He can't debate. Dude, he's running the country right now. He's in charge of our armed forces. He has the nuclear codes and can press the little red button. Everyone's worried about him debating and running a presidential campaign. How about actually being president? Because that's his job right now. Meanwhile, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked by Peter Doocy in the press briefing yesterday about that Mitterrand moment. Does the president think that Francois Mitterrand is still alive? Does he think he had a conversation with a dead man?
How is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you,
What?
sir.
What is
We're
the
going to
rabbit hole?
Go ahead.
He said
Go
he
ahead.
talked to Mitterrand.
Go ahead. You saw the president in Vegas, in California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan. I'll just leave it there. Go ahead.
Wow. You know what? This is great. Republican press secretaries from this point forward can just do this. Anytime they're asked a question about the president that is politically, uncomfortable or hard to deal with, just feign outrage. I won't even dignify that with an answer, sir. I won't go down that rabbit hole with you, sir. How dare you, sir? I say, how dare you? What is this? Are you kidding me? I'm not going to go. It's a legitimate question. The majority of American people right now, based on poll after poll after poll, says that they don't believe Joe Biden has the mental capacity and wherewithal to be president of the United States for 4 more years. And then he does something like that to reinforce it. Peter Doocy says, how are you going to convince everyone he's okay when he thinks he just talked to a dead man? And her entire response is, how dare you, sir? How dare you? Leave the room at once. No one's buying that, are they? What was that one part where she said, you saw the president in Las Vegas, you saw the president in California, you saw the president in South Carolina. Yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre, you're right. We just saw him yesterday right here in Washington, D.C.
And I don't want to, maybe choose my words. There's some movement. There's been a response from there's been a response from the opposition, but yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas.
Yeah, okay, Karine Jean-Pierre. If that's going to be your response, if that's going to be the entire strategy you've got in dealing with this question, to just say, hey, you saw the president, you saw him in California, you saw him. Yep, we saw him, all right. We saw him. You just saw him too. A little bit more, by the way, yesterday from Karine Jean-Pierre, fielding questions about the president.
Anything specifically on why you're not doing the Super Bowl interview? I mean, that's a massive audience in an election year of people who may not be tuned into this White House or this election at this moment?
So look, as you know, Super Bowl is a great annual tradition. Look, the president Biden looks forward to watching the game this Sunday, just like millions of, as you just stated, just like millions of Americans are going to be doing that. And look, we hope that the viewers who tuned in, we know that the viewers who tuned in, they tune in to watch the game, right? And so obviously, that is just a fact. They want to see the game. They want to see their favorite team. They want to see a halftime show. That is what it's that type of tradition. The president will find many other ways to communicate with Americans, the millions of Americans out there, and we will find those ways to do it where we think the time is right.
The way she's stammering through these press conferences, whatever Biden has between his ears, I think it might be contagious. But that's a hell of a message right there. Is there another reason why maybe you could share with us the president has decided not to take a softball interview at halftime in the Super Bowl when you've got the largest television audience at any given time the entire year when he's running a presidential campaign? Seems like a weird political decision. What do you say, Karine Jean-Pierre? People just want to watch the game. They're not interested in this sort of thing. Can I just let you know that the president has been president for 2 Super Bowls so far? In 3 Super Bowls, 21, 22, and 23. Now, this is the 4th Super Bowl that he's president, 2024. He did give the interview the first 2 years, 21 and 22. He refused last year, and now he's refusing again this year. So I guess by Karine Jean-Pierre's logic, by the Biden White House's logic, Joe Biden was wrong to have done this interview in 21 and 22 because people don't care and they just want to watch the game. Are you buying that one? In fact, that would have been a really good follow-up there, lady reporter at the White House. I'm sorry, you're saying that the American people just want to watch the game. Well, then what's your excuse for doing the interview for 2 years back in 21 and 22? But I think we all know the hidden message that Karine Jean-Pierre and Joe Biden and the White House is sending here. You saw it, right? You read between the lines. We're not going to do that interview at the Super Bowl because people are tuning in. Football fans want to watch the game. They care about football and they want to watch football and nothing else. The clear message is Joe Biden hates Taylor Swift.